going back to the Spain-Germany match just one more time. I don't mean to rub it in. I know. Most of the squad was going to be going for Spain, but you were going to be holding it out for Germany. How did that play out? Did you walk up to Busquets and just tell him it was a handball? Or
So we were sitting in our hotel in Charlotte. We kind of just hung around, and the handball happens, and I'm screaming in the back. I'm like, handball! They have to call it, like VAR. Everybody, like, you have to call handball. Jordi Alba sees the replay of it and walks out the room and says, this is a handball. I can't believe it that they're giving this handball.
no
Like,
way.
he's actually leaving the room. He's so upset that, like, it's a handball, and then just disbelief. And Jordi Alba comes storming back into the room and he's like, they didn't give it. And I was like, yeah, they didn't. And everybody was shocked.
Welcome to the Player Manager Podcast. I'm Zealand Shannon, back again with Inter Miami's Julian Gressel. Feel like you might have figured that out by now. But as you know him, of course, it's the Tony Cruz of South Florida. And I don't even know if we need the qualifier anymore since Tony Cruz has retired. We're back after a little break. I was in Europe. I was actually in Germany for a good portion of that. I got up to some shenanigans, tried a few things Julian recommended, and Julian's got a week plus between games, so he's just kind of, I don't know, taking it easy, taking a week off the podcast as well. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, last time we recorded, we were on the road, so we've just been back. Got a few days off. We did a little staycation here, local, around 30, 40 minutes away at a nice hotel, because we're currently getting a new roof in our house, and the first few days were really loud, so we wanted to get the kids out. And it kind of coincided with some off days, so we went to a nice little resort and had some family fun at the pool a lot. And now we're back training, and now we're getting ready for a game, obviously, here. 2 games, actually, and then the League's Cup.
And no rest for the weary always. I like how you frame that as a staycation also. Like, well, the roof's been, no, it was a staycation. Took the wife and the kids. It was awesome. Yeah, I like it. There's plenty of places in Miami, I think. I also think that every place in Miami is over 40 minutes away. So you saying that doesn't really narrow it down. All the
It was
traffic.
It was Boca.
Yeah, okay. That is actually 40 minutes away. That's fair. That was a good traffic day. Then we do have got to move because we got a lot that we need to talk about. Missing that week was tough because in that week, Greg Berhalter, as Julian predicted, and I did not, so score 1 for Julian, is out as the U.S. men's national team manager. Spain has won the Euros again, much to Julian's chagrin and England's chagrin, but I guess the rest of Europe was kind of happy that Spain kept England from finally winning a major trophy. That's just general consensus. And England's heartbreak continues. Inter Miami back in action this week. We'll touch on that, of course. And unbelievably, on top of all of that, we also have a special guest on the show today, somebody I've worked with before when it comes to the YouTube side of things, the Fabrizio Romano of the United States, if you will. Tom Bogert will be joining us later on in this episode. He is a real journalist, a realpolitik in the journalism world, and a man that is often rocking a fabulous mustache. So make sure to follow the Instagram to see that pop up on any of those particular reels, because mine is now gone. He is the only mustache in town. But first, Inter Miami's Lionel Messi, of course he had to touch on this, wins Copa America with Argentina on what was a ridiculous night in Miami. And you were there?
I was about 40 minutes away, right?
Okay. I thought I saw you diving through the swan diving through the gates trying to get in to see your teammate. That wasn't you? Oh, sure.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I contemplated for a while to go, if I should go, if I shouldn't, but obviously once in a lifetime thing, right? Where you could go to a Copa America final in the city that you live in, with a teammate of yours actually playing in it, with obviously so much at stake in that sense, and just a cool sporting event as a fan to go to. So it was, a tough decision, but at the end of the day, I decided not to do it just because it was going to be late, and we obviously have two games coming up, tough week. So, my med time's pretty early as a dad these days, so I wouldn't have made it too much into it. And obviously with what had happened, and with all the stuff happening getting into the stadium and all those things, I'm kind of glad I didn't go. So yeah, made the right decision.
Did you have teammates go?
I think, some teammates posted on Instagram. I think I saw that were there. I didn't hear anything in the locker room that kind of, some crazy stories that they had come across in terms of getting into the stadium. So I'm glad that everybody was accounted for, everybody was healthy at training today. So nobody had any issues getting in or getting out of there yesterday. I think, and obviously a lot of our guys are happy that Argentina won and it turned out the way it did.
There was it was a wild game, honestly, once it finally got started, but it got started an hour late because of what we've kind of been alluding to in various ways. If you've ever seen the documentary Attack on Wembley on Netflix, or the Battle of Wembley, or whatever it is, basically that happened all over again, and it turned into an absolute nightmare. Now, I understand that this kind of started because the ticket prices for the game were truly offensive. I mean, it was like $1,500 to get through the door. And there is a huge expat Colombian population on top of the general fervor of everybody trying to watch Messi play in a Copa America final that could very well be his last one. All of that on top of itself. And then 2 hours before the game, which is ridiculous because I feel like 2 hours before a normal game, I'm not even near the stadium yet. But 2 hours before the game, they started breaking down fences. When did you to get into the stadium? Like, when did you first hear about it? And what was your reaction to that kind of news? Because I was almost, unfortunately, the way the tournament had been going, I really was not that surprised.
Yeah, the tournament, I mean, that's a whole different discussion I think we got to have about what this tournament unveiled about, how far the US and all these stadium sites have to go before the World Cup comes in a few years. But I was actually on a walk with the dog after the kids went down, and then I wanted to turn on the TV about 10 minutes before 8, and saw the kickoff was delayed, and then we watched some different, me and my wife, and turned to kind of stayed in touch with it on social media, and then it kind of just kept getting later and later, and I was like, this is just gonna be too late for me here to watch the whole thing. So I ended up making it through the first half, and then I kind of passed out. But obviously very, very unfortunate scenes, and kind of tough to see, and it really did remind me of that documentary that I actually had just watched, I think 2 weeks ago. I feel like I already mentioned this here too. But it's out on Netflix, and something, just not great scenes. Obviously, not a good showing from CONMEBOL in general, I think, for the tournament. A lot of things to correct, I think, in the next 2 years.
No, it was just incredible chaos. And then what struck me with the delay, I actually don't even know why they were really delaying the game. I think they were delaying it just to make sure they could let some more people in.
Yeah.
But
weren't families stuck outside too from players?
Yeah. It was, so what ended up happening, and I can't even imagine being one of these people, is they shut down all of the gates. After obviously there'd been this massive security breach. So they call in the police department, they shut down all of the gates, and then they kind of reopen them and start bringing people back in. But at that point, I mean, when I don't know exactly how many people got through when the gate, I think it was just one part of the fence was kind of breached and a bunch of people sprinted in. I mean, this stadium's massive, right? Like, you're going to play hide and seek with like a couple thousand Colombian fans and try and figure out like which ones are in the stadium legally and which ones are. I mean, if I were them,
no
right?
chance.
And I'm not, you don't want to encourage what they were doing, but like, there's no chance you're going to find them all. You'd have to delay the game to tomorrow and do like a sweep of the stadium.
Yeah.
So they there's a limit to the number of people that can be in there. So what ends up happening is a bunch of people that actually paid the obscene amount of money that it cost to go to that game ended up not getting in, because of course they were taking their time getting in, because they're like, oh, we'll just let that crowd deal with itself and then we'll just walk in with our ticket. Well, by the time they get to the gate, they're turning everybody away because there's already too many people inside the stadium. If I was one of those people, I would be inconsolably upset. I mean, that's a ton of money to you can't even go to the game.
It absolutely is. And I mean, I don't even know how I'd feel. I would obviously first be happy that I'm probably healthy, I guess, in that moment.
Yeah, you didn't get stampeded.
Yeah, but then you're also like super, super pissed, and just kind of, you want to go into that game, right? And you want to go see it, especially after spending so much money. Like, you see all the people in Vancouver, for example, being so pissed when Leo Messi didn't come to play. Like, there was was like not obviously those types of scenes, but you get upset, and people are upset. They spend their hard earned money, and like you said, it wasn't cheap either to get in there. So yeah, not great, and hopefully it'll get better and they figure it out.
If you want therapy, though, there are videos of once the stadium, like once the security had gotten its stuff together, they were going row by row over the course of the entire game and just ejecting people that didn't have tickets. It's great videos of a bunch of people, like they see the police coming and they try and like skedaddle away, and the
That's
police
hilarious.
go and grab them. Yeah, is there a bunch of people, even if you had tickets, that would go in the stadium, and then there were just people in their seats, and the people wouldn't move, and they would go to the stadium staff. This is like from actual reporting on the scene. They go to the stadium staff, and the stadium staff would say, look, we can't do anything about it. We're just trying to make sure that nothing worse happens,
Yeah.
but you're going to be able to sit in your seats. Just absolute mess. But the atmosphere, it must be said, the atmosphere at the match itself was fantastic. The Colombian and the Argentine fans were absolutely, they hyped up what was, especially for the first half, which you were able to watch, a pretty boring match.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of finals kind of are,
Yeah.
especially in the first half these days.
Yeah, definitely not the greatest match, but those are finals, and I've experienced a few on the field myself, and finals are always different. There's a different edge to them. There's a different, a little fear factor in them that you don't want to make a mistake, especially early on, to kind of get behind. And so you just, it's not the greatest games. And so was the Euro final, to be honest. So
Yeah.
it's something that, it's just also at the end of the year, guys have played so many minutes, they've played so much, and now to have this high stakes game at the end of it, it's like, all right, like let's just kind of finish it out, I guess, in a sense. But certainly, yeah, not the best game, but atmosphere wise, amazing. And it took 112 minutes for something to happen, but then certainly something happened, and Argentina won it in the end.
And the clock strikes midnight on Colombia's unbeaten run. Messi has done it again. Argentina has done it again. They have gone back to back as Copa America champions.
There's something before we get too far away from it. There was something I wanted to ask, because the delay was it was over an hour. Officially, it was an hour and 15 minutes. Does that have an effect on the quality of the game that the players prep? Because they actually got pulled off the field at one point. They were all warming up, and you got to go chill and then come back and start warming up again. How much of an effect does that have on the match and on the players in it?
I think it felt like it was pretty early on where they got pulled off. So it's not like you are going through a full warm up where you're kind of ready to go, and then it's like the last 10 minutes they're like, okay, now stop. So from my understanding, it was that they kind of went out, did like 10 minutes on the field, and then kind of went back inside. So it's not like they did a ton of stuff ready. For me, those things are just weird with the food intake and kind of getting hungry, because usually I like to be like almost empty stomach when we play type-ish. So my last meal is like 3.5 hours before, and I have something really small. So I'm like almost starting to get hungry. And as you kind of go along with the delay, you're not really sure how to eat, how much to eat, what to eat, like those things. So that can get a little bit uncertain. I mean, I only experience it through lightning delays, right? And that is maybe a little bit even more uncertain, because you have no influence, or you have no idea when it will restart. Where there, maybe they had some time and obviously knew the information kind of firsthand of when it'll actually kick off. But yeah, it matters a little bit, but both teams are affected by it. So it's just about kind of having the right mentality and the right mindset, I think, to kind of overcome that. And at the end of the day, it's a final. You want to win it. You want to give everything anyways.
And I'm curious, what are you eating in this break? Is it like a power bar? Is it a banana? I don't know why I'm interested, because you're so meticulous, you in particular, about what you're eating and when, and like how you fuel your body up for that moment. When you're in a holding pattern, what's the fuel?
It's simple carbs, simple stuff that is easy to digest, like bananas. Like what else do we have? We have just little like carbohydrate shots, those energy gels, or little bars that are just small things that keeps your kind of blood sugar high and kind of keeps you your stomach, something in your stomach a little bit.
Those energy gels. I don't know why this is such a vivid memory for me, but I did that marathon, and you have to eat the energy gels over the course of the marathon. But in the training, I started to look like the Joker because they're so wide, they cut the edges of your mouth. I don't know if you've ever, but I have these straight line cuts on the side of my mouth that are scars now. And I actually feel like, you want to know how I got these scars? That's my moment because I did all the stupid energy gels. Maybe if you have enough lightning delays, you'll know my pain. You know what I'm saying? But, the pain of Lionel Messi, that was what we were headed towards, because you were apparently asleep when this happened, but Messi tweaked his ankle. Well, maybe you saw this. It was right before the half, right? When he rolled his ankle. And I was watching the replay, and you kind of instantly saw that ankle buckle. What's the first thing that goes through your mind?
I mean, he injured it, I think, after the half, and then it was like the first thing that came up in the next morning.
He rolled his ankle in the first half, and then he got hurt again in the second half. But everybody was focusing on the ankle. What I don't know, and I guess it's probably not my place to decide, is if the injury in the second half was different, and then all of the fun pictures we got of his ankle were just the side effect of him injuring his ankle in the first half, or if the second half injury was him just making the ankle worse. I honestly have no idea. What did you feel when you found out Messi got hurt? That's
yeah. I mean, it's not something I like to see. Obviously, he's gonna play a big role for us. Obviously, towards the end of the year, and when you have one of your players, especially him, having to come off injured in a final where you know that he would play through anything, almost, unless you have to carry him off the field, which I feel like you literally had to in that moment. Then it's not something great for the next few weeks. I think so. Obviously, now I don't know. I only saw the pictures. I saw exactly what you saw. I don't know any more than that. I mean, I'm sure he was overjoyed that they still ended up winning, as you could tell in the videos and pictures and stuff. And I'm sure that makes the injury a little bit better, I want to say, than what it actually is. But at the same time, it looks bad when you see the ankle roll like that, especially over the inside of the ankle. It usually doesn't happen like that, where it usually happens more so, a high ankle sprain that kind of rolls the other way to the outside. But I'm hoping that it's just a sprain and it just, swole up pretty bad, and to protect it, obviously, and then you can get that swelling out of there, and then just takes a few weeks maybe to get that ankle back, and there's nothing structurally wrong in terms of tears or fractures that would delay a lot of things, right? And that's obviously what I don't want to hear over the next few days here as we get more info. So we'll see, but it certainly didn't look great, and something that had me have chills in the morning a little bit when I saw the video.
The cold breeze in that Miami morning. The videos of him crying on the bench too. Yeah. Just, I felt terrible. I feel like I'd never seen Leo Messi, I want to say, express himself in that way. It almost made me afraid. I was like, is this injury worse than we think it is? Like, I'm watching this and I was watching it with my brother at home and talking about well, I don't know if he would cry just because he had to come out of the Copa America final. Like, maybe he knows something we don't, whether it is the injury, or maybe he knows that he's not going to go to the World Cup.
Yeah, that certainly might be on his mind a little. He doesn't want to leave the field like that for the last time, I think, for Argentina. And how much sweeter than, the story afterwards is of them, the whole team kind of rallying around that and kind of winning it without him on the field, and in a sense for him, right? And I mean, you hear that in the post-game interviews a lot from those guys, that they wanted to make him happy, and they wanted to kind of do it for him even after going down like that. And what a cool story in a sense, right? Where he's carried that team for so far and so long, and there he is down and hurt, and all of a sudden all these other guys are coming in to pick that up and just kind of win another trophy, right? He's gone through so much hardship with the Argentinian national team, and finals and everything, and now all of a sudden it's just kind of, they won the first Copa America, and now all of a sudden they just can't stop winning, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the dam broke or something.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. I think he lost 3. I mean, he lost 2 Copa America finals in 2 years. And that, in a lot of ways, felt like what England probably feels like now, where you're just like, well, we're never going to see the sun rise again because you keep losing in all of these finals. But once that sun rose, they just kept winning. I don't know if this means that England's about to win like 4 consecutive major tournaments when they finally cross the river of being able to win something in the first place. But stepping into talking about the Euros final, they certainly didn't win this one. It was the same Spanish team that beat your German team in what was a fantastic game and dare I say, an unlucky loss to the Spanish. But Spain made it look a lot easier against England. You have a chance to watch the game?
Yeah, I watched parts of it, not the full game, but a little bit. It was on the TV for sure. But yeah, I mean, I thought that, similar story of not the greatest game, but Spain obviously the better team and deserved winner, I think, in the end, in a final like that. And yeah, we talk about moments, right? And they certainly thought they had their one moment right after the half where they come out flying and score a great goal like that. And then, England found a way to get back into the game, obviously, with Palmer's great strike and kind of find a little belief. But in the end, I think, again, a very deserved Spain win with ultimately, I think, a deserved winner of the Euros, which is always nice to see that, one of the best teams also won the tournament in as a whole. And you can kind of live with that, even though they beat the Germans. I think I can live with that better as a pure soccer enjoyer, I want to say. And but yeah, that handball call still kind of stings a little bit in the back of my mind. But certainly happy for Spain of kind of how it turned out. And when I got over that moment or that game, yeah, it's okay that they won.
It was a handball. I'll cover that for you. But the real standouts, the real standouts for this Spanish team in this tournament were a couple of young wingers, Lamine Yamal and of course Nico Williams, who scored the first goal for Spain and ended up being very important, considering England scored on what felt like its only shot of the tournament every single time and did it again in this final.
Yeah.
But those two, I mean, Lamine Yamal just turned 17 years old. Is there a way to contextualize how ridiculous it is that those two young kids just like led their nation to a title at this level already?
I don't think so. I don't. It's really hard for me to understand. I mean, 17, that is so young. That's like almost half my age. That's incredible.
Yeah, he was born. I mean, just for like to contextualize it for people, right? He was born in, I believe it's 2007 was when he was born. He was born July 13th, 2007.
That's incredible. So he just turned 17.
What were you? Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, what were you doing in 2007? Like, I was in middle school already.
I was 14. Yeah, 13.
That's. Did you run into that coach that had told you that you weren't going to make it yet? Was that what was going on?
Yeah, exactly. I was being told I wasn't good enough, and this guy's in the Euros final to and plays an unbelievable tournament. But you also have to remember, he's now only 17, and there's going to be comparisons to the all-time greats. We talk about Leo Messi all the time here, and this type of pressure now that he has going back to Barcelona, having to perform now week in and week out. There's not going to be any slack for him whatsoever. It's that like young puppy status almost is gone, and he has to show up. And obviously hope they have a new coach in a German Hansi Flick. I hope he can manage that a little bit for him. But what a awesome type of player, obviously, for Spain to have and for Barcelona to have. And I mean, the next, I don't know, he's going to probably play in 5 Euros and 4 or 5 World Cups. Like, hopefully, right? Hopefully he stays injury free and his career continues this way. But that is something so special in their hands that if they manage it the right way, then hopefully he can kind of take it, to that level of what he's compared to.
No, I can play that game. I love playing this game with people on Twitter or wherever. But If you fast forward Lamine Yamal to Messi's age, he'll be Messi's age in 2044. So we're going to be dealing with Lamine Yamal for a while.
Yeah.
But I know, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Going back to the Spain-Germany match just one more time. I don't mean to rub it in. I know. On the last podcast, we did talk about how you would like watch that with Sergio Busquets or Jordi Alba, or how you would like interact with them around it. And, most of the squad was going to be going for Spain, but you were going to be holding it out for Germany. How did that play out? Did you walk up to Busquets and just tell him it was a handball? Or
Well, so we were sitting in our hotel in Charlotte, and we had a meal room where there's a TV. So we had a meal actually. I think just at the start of the second half. So as the meal finishes, the game goes on, and we kind of just hung around. And I think at one point it was like 3 or 4 guys, those 2 guys sitting in the very front, and I'm sitting or standing, more so standing, in the back, and I'm watching the game. We're all watching. The coaching staff has their own table. We have our table, and the TV is kind of in the middle. And we're obviously, they're making comments when they go attack. I'm making like kind of like comments, just like actual fans, not really at each other, but just towards the game and towards the TV. So the handball happens, and I'm screaming in the back. I'm like, handball, they have to call it, like VAR, everybody, like you have to call handball. Jordi Alba sees the replay of it and walks out the room and says, this is a handball. I can't believe it that they're giving this handball. He's actually leaving the room. He's so upset that like it's a handball, or that's what he thinks, right? That it's a handball and that they're going to VAR and they're going to give it anyway. He was like almost mad at the player, I want to say, for kind of
it was a stupid handball. It was Cucurella that left his hand down.
Yeah. So he walks out, and we're all like waiting, for the ref to, check and then go to the VAR. I'm like almost celebrating already because I think it's a handball and that they'll have a penalty and they're going to end up winning the game that way. And then just disbelief, and Jordi Alba comes storming back into the room and he's like, they didn't give it. And I was like, yeah, they didn't. And everybody was shocked. And it was, then obviously not great from there on out for me afterwards, where, they certainly let me hear it a little bit after, little comments like that, 2-1 and all those things. And but it was all good, and we weren't fighting really too much. It was just, fun back and forth. But that moment was funny, how he just storms out of the room and thinks it's a handball, and then it actually isn't for whatever miraculous reason it isn't.
If it makes you and Jordi Alba feel better, you were not alone, because for that match, I was in Berlin, which was alive while that match was going on. And I was in a hotel right next to the Brandenburg Gate. And we had our windows open. We had all of the windows open. So we were watching the match on the TV, but we could hear the fan zone. And that whole park was just a sea of humanity. And there were like 3 different bars outside of our hotel that were all packed. And the best part was all of the TVs were on different schedules somehow. So first it would be one bar, then it would be us, that we would see what happened, and then it would be the 2 other bars, and then it would be the fan zone. And as that play came up on the screens, every single place went absolutely nuts. Yeah. The fan zone was going crazy. Each bar was celebrating. They all thought that it was a penalty. It's amazing how universal everything, like every reaction to it was, that it was a penalty, and then it just was. It just wasn't.
4 guys or 5 guys all of a sudden just decided that it wasn't.
I heard rumors that there might have been an offside in the buildup, but then apparently a German television station did the offside lines and he wasn't offside. But all I saw was him saying that he thought his arms were by his side, and I have no idea the call was made.
Yeah, that's a big mystery to me. But it's certainly, like, in general, I don't want to be too negative about all of this because I know how hard the job is. But it certainly felt like a summer where referees lost a lot of respect in the US at the Copa America and in Europe at the Euros, and that
Oh,
is not great when they're always kind of the first talking point, in my opinion.
yeah, it feels bad because at the same time, UEFA and FIFA are complaining about a shortage of referees. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
obviously that's going on because referees are kind of getting more hate, but then you can go the other direction and say referees are getting more hate because the standard of refereeing is going down, and it's some sort of vicious cycle where you're just going to end up
Yeah.
with nobody that wants to be the referee anymore. But I think VAR is definitely going through some growing pains, and with things like that handball, I see what's going on, because the heartbreaking thing about that is after all of the cheers, all windows open at the hotel in Berlin, you could hear all of the groans coming from different areas, and there would be one guy in the street screaming in German. I'm sure. So, what happened or whatever.
I wanna get your final thought though on this tournament. You
Okay,
experienced Germany
I
during the
did.
tournament, and
Mhm.
I talked about it before the tournament started, of how I hope that it's a moment to bring the country together, to not just bring the Germany together, but to bring Europe together, to create an environment where everybody feels safe to go and support their country, and just have a soccer celebration. And I want to hear if that was the case in Germany, of what you've experienced, because you actually went to a game, you've experienced the fan miles and the fan fests and all those things. And so what was it actually like on the ground? And did that actually happen? Because from my perspective, I think it did.
Yeah, I mean, TLDR, I think it did. I got the really unique experience. My mom, in particular, had never been to a major European match before, and she's a big Googler of things, and
Okay.
so there is a lot of controversy swirling around the Turkish team because one of the guys had gotten suspended.
Yeah.
And it was a political thing, and then apparently the Turkish president was going to come to the game. So my mom was doing a lot of Googling and was becoming increasingly worried that there was going to be significant violence, kind of like ended up happening at the Copa America final, kind of around this game, because if you're a Turkish fan, you'd feel like, UEFA was coming after you or something. Or
Yeah.
it was a lovely experience, the entire match, and I'll always remember it. We're walking in. I went to the Netherlands against Turkey is the one match that I actually got to experience at the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, and we're walking in to the match itself, and there are 5 absolutely hammered Dutch fans that are in a dancing circle with like a bunch of Turkish people. Like they're doing, I don't really know what it's called, but it's a big circle of people, and they're all have arms around their shoulders, and they're all dancing, and some dude's playing an instrument, and they're just like passing off, and they were having the best time. We went to the match an hour and a half early, took the train in with all the fans. It was a mosh pit outside the stadium, not in a dangerous way, just a sea of people kind of getting in. And every single person outside of myself and my family, my mom, my dad, and my brother, was wearing either bright orange or dark red for the Netherlands or Turkey, right? And there were a lot of Dutch fans as well, as you probably saw on TV if you watched the match. And everybody was nice to each other and high-fiving. And I give a huge shout out, because as much as I'd love to believe in the greatness of humanity, that's also a result of Germany ran the tournament fabulously. There were visible riot police everywhere, but not in a way where you felt like you were being watched, like the man was there. They were just there so that you knew they were there. So if that one drunk idiot decided to throw a bottle or try and get in a fight because whatever, they knew that it probably wasn't a very good idea, because these guys were in full riot gear, but they were also there almost as tour guides. People were asking them questions. I know, because my mom asked them directions because she was convinced we were going to the wrong gate, and they were very helpful. And so it was super nice experience in the stadium, even after the match. Heartbreaking loss for Turkey. No problem at all. There were people helping my parents get through the subway, because my brothers and I were having to go through like a different exit, so we couldn't find our parents and help them because of the security flow. And there were different fans helping them get on the right train and everything. I mean, it felt great. It was very cool. It felt like Germany had 2 home teams almost.
Yeah.
Like Turkey was the second home team, in the same way that if the United States was playing, Mexico would be the second home team. Like once Germany was knocked out as well, all of the bars were like, we're a Turkish bar now. Like, like here we go. And there was, instead of like an animosity around that, there was a real support for it. And there was this kind of feeling that Germans that even weren't of Turkish descent were like, yeah, I hope they get it. Like, yeah, screw the Netherlands anyways. Like, I hope they win the game. And then the Dutch were great too. It was really well put together. It felt safe. It felt happy. And I know that's everything. Like, I was happy for you. I remember I was walking around the fan zone and I'm like, Julian would be really happy that like this was all going the way that you would hope that it would.
Nice.
And I think even though Germany didn't win the whole thing, the run to the quarterfinal, it was almost like it was just far enough for everybody to really get their German flags out on the building again and like really get behind the team.
Yeah, and the way they played helped as well. But it's certainly good to hear that they kind of captured, not just the German fans, but kind of, like I said, all of Europe, and made everybody feel safe to really celebrate and have a good time. Forget about politics and all those other crap that is sometimes going on.
Yeah,
and just,
always.
Have a few weeks of celebration of this game that we love. And what a great way to end our Euro coverage.
Yeah, no, ending it on a smiling note, and as if all the kumbaya wasn't enough. The best team won, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I'm just surprised that Spain was the best team, but I guess we'll see if they can reproduce that sort of thing at the World Cup. And that brings us to actual MLS action that you've partaken in. Now, obviously, the last time out, Cincinnati, tough loss, not fun.
What game? I don't remember.
Well, I guess that answers the question on how exactly Inter Miami's approaching that one. And on to the next one. That definitely felt like the type of game to just throw out the back window and keep moving. But you got Wednesday at home against Toronto, and a very successful. And this was a big concern, honestly. I feel like since we started this podcast, we were talking about how Inter Miami would do in Copa America when you're missing, obviously, Messi, but he's not even the only one gone. You guys were great. I mean, you won 4 games, just had the one loss that, I mean, I don't even honestly remember who was against either, clearly. How did you guys manage to pull that off? I mean, you have to be happy with that big picture.
Extremely happy, I think, big picture. And I think even internally within Inter Miami, I think that exceeded expectations. And we've won some tough road games as well, and grinded out results and relied on different guys, and we're able to win 4 games, have 1 loss that obviously stings, right? I can mention it really quick. That 1 loss stings, but we could have also just lost 1-0 and it would have been the same. So the way we lost, it's the regular season, and there'll be another match, and then we'll also maybe face in the playoffs and all those things. So there'll be, chances for to face those guys again, and revenge in a sense. So but it's been a good run for us, and we're certainly trying to obviously now close it out right on Wednesday and Saturday before the League's Cup break, to be collect 6 points from those 2 games, and then still be maybe a point off or a couple points off from the Supporter Shield, from first place, and then we'll see what happens at League's Cup, and then obviously afterwards. So we're certainly feeling good about the last few weeks. We're confident, that I think 1 loss didn't do much to that confidence, especially some younger guys that have stepped up pretty good and then played a ton of minutes and contributed in a sense. So certainly been a good few weeks.
And not just for the team, but also for you personally. 6 goal contributions in your last 6 games. Are you almost sad that Messi and co's coming back? I mean, obviously he's hurt. That might delay it a little longer. You've done a good job in the Leo Messi role. There's no way around it, even for somebody as humble as you.
I appreciate that you saying that. No, it's been a good run for me, a good run of form, and I've obviously played a little bit of a different way, more advanced again, where all of a sudden it shows up on the stat sheet again a bit more. Where if I play a little bit further back in midfield, my roles are just different, and now my role is just more attacking and more creating and being dangerous going forward. And I certainly still have that in me, as I showed over the last 6 games, and whatever we kind of need going forward, I'm certainly trying to provide that. If that's going back to a more defensive role, or if that's going kind of staying where I am for right now, we'll kind of see, and Tata has the plan for that. But I'm open to anything, as I've said before, and I'm certainly happy to help the team in any way I can.
Oh, God, that was a great press conference answer.
Yeah,
Huge shout. That was awesome. And I just have to mention this. I was going to mention this. Michael put it in like the notes for this week, but I saw this on Instagram as well. You dipped your toe into my side of the aisle in the coaching, because I've befriended a few people that work at MLS, and all of a sudden they were all posting these Instagram pictures of them playing in this media day thing in Miami. And lo and behold, the coach that's laying it all down for them is Julian Gressel.
Well, tell you
so
what.
How do you end up coaching this?
Tell you what, we could have used the goalkeeper.
I
know. We're like, I told them, I was like, we're part of the media. I'm part of the media, and Zealand's part of the media. We should have been invited to this.
Well, okay, that would be unfair. If all of a sudden they wheel you out, Mr. 6 goal contributions in the last 6 games, you'd be walking all over all of these MLS anchors and reporters. But I, on the other hand, it would have been an honor to be coached by you. I've got my old rundown gloves back there.
Next year. Oh, yes.
I'm so ready.
But I just got asked from the club. The club had 4 guys come out to coach. They always need 2 English speakers and two Spanish speakers. So me and Robert Taylor were coaching together, more of the media that was speaking English also. And it was just a good week because a lot of people were obviously in town because of the Copa America final. So they decided to have a little media game, and it was a cool event. It was different, right? Usually we just get asked questions all the time, and this one was just different. It was just a nice casual way to see them play, see how bad certain guys are, see how good other people are, and just it was just fun. It was a fun day. I didn't do too much coaching, honestly. It was just get in there and have some fun, don't get hurt type thing. But we had a good first half. We were up 2-0, but then we lost the game, I think 6-3 or 6-2 or something like that. And
Coach, where was the breakdown? What happened?
Well, so this is what I did after the game. I asked all the media members, so what happened in the second half? And they were like, this is harder to answer than I thought. And all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, see? And now you ask us that all the time. So certainly had a little payback in that sense. But no, it was all fun and games and all pretty good.
Wow. Well, that is, I can imagine, almost therapeutic for you at that point, where you're like, you just should have set up some sort of fake reverse press conference. Would have been,
I know.
That would have been perfect. No, I mean, well, you got to tell me at least, what formation did you roll out in, or did it not even get to that?
It didn't even really get to that. I mean, we were playing, I think, with 14 or 15 field players, so it wasn't.
Well, I mean, naturally.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't even full field either. So it was just, just for fun to get out there and have some joy and just kick the ball around.
I'm glad that it was so fun, but it is time. Do you know what time it is?
I know what time it is.
It's time for Tom. And Tom time means that our special guest is here. Kind of already spoiled who that is for you. The Fabrizio Romano of the United States, and I've been told a football manager YouTuber wannabe. Maybe someday he'll get there. Someday he will actually make that happen. He's slinging the hottest transfer news, and of course that is really important this time of year. Please welcome Tom Bogert. Yeah, let's go.
What's going on? I'm just honored to be on the program. Just honored.
What's up,
Absolutely honored. Well, good. We'll start with a nice softball for you. U.S. national team fired its coach, Greg Berhalter's out, and the search is on. Do you have any predictions for us about who that coach is going to be? Any inside information behind that mustache?
Not at this stage. I don't have a ton for you because obviously it's a preliminary spot of the coaching search. What was interesting to me is United States, U.S. Soccer sporting director Matt Crocker. One of his press release quotes was that the coaching search was already underway, and I think that was on purpose to let the fans know that, hey, we've already started. And I think that is the biggest concern I had, no matter what direction they were going to go in. Was this going to be another 8-month search or something ridiculous? And I know circumstances are much different now than they were then, but even though September is a tight turnaround in less than 2 months now for that international break, they are only friendlies, so it's not the worst thing in the world necessarily if they don't have a coach in place. But I'm at the point where there's no excuse to not have a coach in place if you go through your search and you're going through targets, because it absolutely cannot take that long again. It's quite frankly a huge joke that to hire Berhalter in the first time and then to keep him around also took 8 months in between. I just don't understand what we're doing. And I think that the consultancy firm stuff has more to do with perception than it does reality. I think it's like, hey, look, we exhausted every data point. We did 775 interviews with each person. We asked them what they want on their ice cream, right? And that's how we got to it doesn't have to be that deep, man. Like, it doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah, it's July 15th, right? And you have the games in September. So there's certainly enough time to figure it out, I think, by then. And the sooner you get a guy involved, the sooner he can take, even have two more games to look at guys and to evaluate guys and to get his points across, especially in those initial camps is so huge. And guys will be starting up their seasons. They will be kind of, ready to go in go mode anyway. So it'll be a really good time to have a new coach in place before waiting until the November window, where then you kind of trotting towards the winter already. And, it's just another month that we lost, or 2 months almost.
Completely agree.
Well, now that they're not going to have, the new manager's not going to have any real serious competitive matches in the run up to the World Cup, the friendlies are basically all that they're going to get. I mean, outside of CONCACAF, I should say, which is, I think, what everybody realizes, especially with the Copa America performance, is like, those are the important matches, playing again. No offense to Guatemala, but those sorts of matches, the Nations League or whatever, are necessarily helping prepare the team to move forward. Now, the last time we recorded this podcast, it was right before Greg Berhalter had been fired. I said I had a sinking feeling that he was going to stay around. Julian correctly predicted that he was not going to be the coach of the U.S. national team anymore. Not that he was rooting for it or anything, but he did say that he felt it was impossible for him to stay around with the fan pressure, amongst other things. But another part of it was that the players were maybe too comfortable with Greg. And this is kind of a question from me to both of you, both Tom and Julian. Obviously, Julian, you know Greg well, like you played for the national team, for crying out loud. And Tom, you cover all this nonsense. I am just an armchair expert. Is that true? And is that a problem that you can have with a coach, where it is almost too comfortable and there isn't like an expectation being set anymore?
Look, I know Julian played for him, but obviously I'm the preeminent expert on this. I would know more about being in the locker room than Julian would. Don't even ask me. It's Julian, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody will be on edge automatically when there's a new guy in the locker room that doesn't have a relationship yet with any of the players. Maybe there'll be a few guys that will maybe have experienced that type of coach who is now coming in, maybe through past coaching experiences. Like Jurgen Klopp would have had a relationship with Christian Pulisic, right? Or Giorena, because they've known each other from clubs before. So that's the only way to really get I think some of that familiarity and stuff in there. But I think so in that sense, everybody will always have that edge. And to be honest with you, in terms of a player, like when I look at this, I'm like, right? The Copa America was not good. It was not a good showing from us. And I would have that internal motivation of myself to just be better, right? In every single camp, in every single way we train together, so that doesn't happen at the World Cup, right? It would mean that much to me. I obviously can't speak for those guys, but that's how I would approach those camps. So no matter who the coach is, I would want to put my best foot forward all the time and not be there hanging out with my buddies, enjoying the time together that I haven't seen in a while in a really cool environment, like that is out the window. It didn't work for us last time, and it's not going to work again, so in that sense, the coach almost doesn't really matter. But it will create that extra wrinkle of like, oh man, I really got to be on my A game. I got to be, punctual to all the meetings. I got to, show that I am willing to give everything I absolutely have and do every little thing the right way to be part of a World Cup roster that is being played in the United States. And that is what you are essentially working for, starting hopefully now in September, right? And that's where all that first impression is huge at times.
Yep. From the outside, for me, like when I'd push back at the notion of the air quote too comfortable. I think that again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like just from some of the reporting with, that the players wanted Greg back. Like, I think that there's a difference between either being comfortable / soft rather than like, oh, like they just had a good working relationship with the manager. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. But the other side of this is, as you were already saying, like everybody's going to be in their A game. It creates like, there is no worry about air quote favoritism. There is no idea of, okay, well, like I've started the last 7 games, I'm probably there, or anything else like that. Like it's a complete wild card. It's a complete, I need to prove myself all over again. And again, the sharpest players mentally and with the sharpest mentalities, I should say. I hope that they're doing that all the time anyway, and not like resting on laurels or whatever. So that's kind of where I come from it, where like Ricardo Pepi, he's more or less been second choice. Like again, he missed the 2022 World Cup squad. Balogun came in as a starting over him. Josh Sargent, I think, would have been the starter at the Copa America if he was fit. And so now it's like, well, now it's all even. And no matter what, like I have a chance to win a new coach over. Like there is no idea of, oh man, like this guy just doesn't like me, or oh man, like this guy has his favorites, right? Like everybody comes with a clean slate, and I think that'll be very useful ahead of the 26 World Cup.
John Brooks. All right. Anyways,
Julian Gressel.
Hey, 6 goal contributions in 6 games. If the new manager isn't taking notes on that, I'm just look. There's something in that Lionel Messi role. I've been told he can pull a few strings. Yeah, he's got that Tony Cruz hair, and it's more than just the hair. I'm sorry. I've got some inside information to break for you. Jurgen Klopp has already turned the job down. Yes. But there is a part of that I found really interesting. Apparently, Jurgen Klopp had turned the job down before they even announced that Greg Berhalter was being let go, because they said it all came out that he'd been contacted. Then it said no, a week ago he said no, and I'm like, a week ago Greg Berhalter was the coach of the national team. But okay, there's some other names that have been thrown around. Steve Cherundolo had a wonderfully awkward press conference. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. It's incredibly uncomfortable. And Hervé Renard, who is God, I would love it to be Hervé Renard. I'm infatuated with anybody that can win the Africa Cup of Nations with Zambia. I'll start there. That is beyond anything. We've talked about what you're actually hearing and how everything went down. Who would you want to be the coach? Or if not a name, like a type of person to come in?
No, that's super interesting. I would definitely, like, I don't want to be binary with any of this stuff where it's like, just because a manager is an MLS or isn't an MLS. Like that alone, it should be the complete resume. That should just be one factor among it, right? And I don't think right now that there is an obvious MLS candidate. I think it'd probably be Cherundolo or Wilfried Nancy would be that. And for me, I would be looking elsewhere first. I would, going to look at managers with more international track record. Again, Hervé Renard is a guy. Jose Pekerman was a name that Jose Pekerman was a name that was floated by David Goss to me. And I was like, oh, that makes sense too. Like, that's interesting. There's like a couple others like that. And then if you're going to go for someone who hasn't managed at the international level, which again, I'm not binary with this. I don't think that should preclude anybody. But if it is that, I would start with like, again, if they call Klopp, like, what's the harm in, hey, Mauricio Pochettino, you have any interest, right? Like, or a couple coaches like that, because for better or worse, like, I don't see Steve Cherundolo leaving LAFC for something other than the United States national team manager. So hypothetically speaking, if this still is going on in 2.5 months, you can always call him. I will say one name that I find to be interesting, and this is just deduction. This isn't inside information, but I'll say that Rafa Benitez, the former Liverpool manager, has been pretty visible on U.S. airwaves. And I do know that his representation set up a couple, like I saw Mon Golazo, and that stuff comes through your agent usually. It's not Rafa Benitez calling up Charlie Davis like, hey man, can I be on the show, right? So I think that there's a reason to that. I think that Rafa Benitez wants to have a little bit of visibility in the United States. And hey, maybe CBS Golazo's paying him well for appearances, and that'd be cool too. But if I had to go a little conspiracy theory, I think that's Rafa Benitez angling for it a little bit.
Okay.
And he's a tournament manager. And as a Liverpool fan, I still don't hate him for going to Everton and Chelsea a little bit. Still hurt me. But like, I'm always thinking about 2005. And he always got the reputation of being a cup manager. So I'd be in for that. But I know that's my biases too, my red Liverpool heart.
That would be interesting. I feel like that would be divisive in the sense. I would be looking at that and saying, well, Rafa Benitez, kind of, what have you done for me lately? And he definitely flamed out. Yes. In his previous appointments. So who knows? Maybe he's been like out of the game long enough. You go on vacation and you reset, and then you come back and you can be what you were. I don't think you lose it forever, but that's fascinating. My favorite burn the world to the ground answer is Gareth Southgate. I think that would be absolutely hilarious.
It'd be funny, but what? Like, do you think that's a realistic appointment? He just led England to the Euro finals. Look at that England squad. Like the hierarchy of teams. He was linked with, apparently he either turned down an interview with Manchester United or whatever, right? Like, we're not in that class.
I agree with you, generally speaking, but I think that he might be out of a job soon, and I don't think he's somebody that wants to be out of coaching. And while a lot of the jobs he might want would be available, I think it's a conversation that might be happening. I have been reminded by our producer, Michael, that there are connections between Matt Crocker and Gareth Southgate that could grease the skis on that one. A little bit. But I mean, the main reason I'm rooting for it is because multiple fan bases would have simultaneous meltdowns, England and the United States. And so that could be particularly entertaining.
Let me just give one. I want to give one that.
Oh, yeah. I asked the question to both of you. Yeah.
It's not going to do it. I mentioned it to Tata the other day.
Oh,
what did he say? Did he say no habla inglés?
Yes, he was just like very difficult with English. So
that's incredible.
I don't think he'll be leaving Miami for that job unless there's something really crazy that happens. But
mid-season, sorry, first place-ish team. Sorry, Messi, Busquets, Alba, Suarez, Julian Gressel, Drake Calendar, all these. Sorry, guys, I'm out. I'm leaving mid-season.
I think
honestly, Drake and me, hopefully, at the national team.
That's a good point.
Would be, hey, yeah. Honestly, if you can convince Tata to take that might be the fast track into the starting 11 with the U.S. national team.
That was the angle that Julian was working.
Didn't work out, unfortunately.
I don't blame Tata though. The way he was treated at Mexico after all that, he's probably done with CONCACAF life forever. Yeah, be enjoying Miami, and then in this glorious transition that I can't think of because I'm still jet lagged from my trip to Europe between Inter Miami and MLS transfers. But that's like your main vibe, and that's the main reason we kind of had you on, as much as I loved ambushing you with Greg Berhalter. The window is set to open kind of later this week for most teams. And who are the players from the two major international tournaments that kind of just ended that are attracting interest? Who do you think could be on the move?
Yeah, that's a good. I do know that there are several players from both these tournaments. I have people asking me, "Hey, did you hear that this team is interested in this?" Or an agent being like, "Oh, I suggested this player to this team," and that happens about 1 billion times a year. So you don't put too much stock in it. But that's MLS clubs where they're at a point where they have the money, they have the quality of life, and the quality of league for a lot of guys that would make sense. And again, where people have kind of surpassed the quality of league, they have the money, right? So I don't really have any specific names. I will say I'm not surprised that Alvaro Morata is about to sign with AC Milan, but why couldn't a team like Atlanta United call? And what if they did, right? Something like that. There are bigger names than kind of you expect. One that I would love to talk into existence is Memphis Depay. He's a free agent. I haven't heard anything to suggest that he's coming, but I would like that to happen. And then again, I know that this dream is dead, and Julian, you don't have to react, so I don't want to get you in trouble. But Angel Di Maria was connected to Inter Miami, and I believe it's either official or heavily reported that he's staying at Benfica for another year.
I mean, I'm almost surprised that didn't happen because Messi is just kind of getting the band back together. But yeah, I mean, on the bright side, Di Maria would have stolen just a few assists from Julian Gressel, so you don't need.
Well, to be honest with you, I feel like everybody that is somewhat in the market is connected to Inter Miami at some point.
Yeah, but the difference is that one was actually real in the sense of that would be from ownership or from Messi. But no, I make this joke all the time, or somebody will text me about you just see a headline and it's like, oh, do you think that Inter Miami are interested in blank? And it's like, dude, just take a guess, look at what the outlet is, and just assume if they're just blanket being like, who's interested in this team, this player, LA Galaxy and Inter Miami, just assume that it's nonsense.
Yeah. But the LA Galaxy might be getting a German. Is that going to happen?
They might. They are still in active conversations with Marco Reus, the Dortmund legend. I was told last week that the Galaxy, the longer this goes on, we're going from hopeful to straight up confident. And if he was going to take, again, the bigger paycheck would be in the Middle East and almost definitely in Turkey as well. If he's been connected to Turkey a little bit, because the Galaxy can only offer him at most max TAM. So that's 1.73 million, whatever it is, right? He could, get 5 times that, 10 times maybe in Saudi Arabia. So the thought is if he just wanted to go somewhere for money, he would have done it already. Yeah. And he wouldn't still be talking to the Galaxy in how can we make this work? How can we make this happen? Again, the lifestyle living in Los Angeles. Charlotte wanted him, but he was like, if I come to MLS, I know that I want to go to Los Angeles to the Galaxy, and I know I'd have to take a pay cut, so I need to control where I'm going to go. So yeah, that's one that, look, push comes to shove, I think is going to happen. I don't know that for a fact. Nothing's agreed. Nothing's being finalized or whatever, right? But like, this wouldn't linger this long, I don't think, if they were trying to exhaust, both sides were trying to exhaust every possible avenue to make this happen.
I would certainly be excited to see him in MLS. I feel like he'd be cool to have for a year or two.
I think like people, I think fairly can push back at either his age or, you know, how many minutes has he played for the last couple of years, Dortmund, like injury history, whatever, right? We could have the conversation if he was coming as a DP, like, hey, like, would that be perfect or not? As a TAM player, literally every team in the league should be trying. Like, I think that's an absolute no-brainer. And like, I've still had people push back about the Galaxy, like, oh, why would they sign him? It's like, dude, if you can get Marco Reus on a TAM deal, I don't care how many DPs you have in the attack. You do it. You figure it out later.
And the Galaxy are a team right now that are also kind of like on that verge to jump into that top tier, I feel like. And a signing like that certainly would put them into that to finish out the season and then heading into the playoffs. So not a bad deal, I think, for them to get him right now.
On the bright side, that's another player that you can surprise by speaking German when you step on the field. Yeah, that's
by now it might be different. By now it might be known a little bit.
The secret's out. Yeah, the secret's out. That Bastian Schweinsteiger story is my absolute. Forget about that. Now I'm going to try and learn a little German.
I'll forever remember his face when I said that. But we only talk about incoming transfers. What about outgoing? Do you, obviously with the Olympics, right? There's Olympic rosters happening. I've certainly a teammate that is being linked to some European clubs. Is there anybody around the league that kind of sticks out in that regard of outgoing transfers now in the summer, which is a bigger window for Europe rather than MLS?
Yeah, and that's where it's difficult for a lot of these. So like, again, Caleb Wiley, by the time this podcast goes up, maybe there'll be an announcement. Like Caleb Wiley, Chelsea signing him. He's being loaned to Strasbourg. He's going to the Olympics, which is cool that everybody wanted that to happen. But like Atlanta United, if they were higher up the table, this might have been like, I don't think that they would have turned down $11 million no matter what. But like, that's a difficult pill to swallow. You're starting left back, key player for you. How do you do that midseason? One that's more pertinent is Diego Gomez, Inter Miami and Paraguay International. Brighton they had submitted an initial bid. I know that it wasn't close to Miami's valuation, but like the people I talked to are like, if Brighton want to make this happen, they would be able to put up the fee. And like, they've discussed loosely what it would probably take to get it done. What I've been told, and again, things are always fluid, it can change, is that if they came with 15 million, that would be enough, right? And at that point, it's really hard to tell a team if they're giving you $15 million that, well, actually, he needs to stay until January. And I hope that's the case. Again, Joey, I don't want to make you react and get you in any trouble. I hope that that's the case, but like, I can't, and I asked sources about like, is that where you're starting negotiations? Hey, no matter what, he needs to be here until January. And I wasn't kind of told like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it was like, oh, like that means that I think there's a chance that he leaves this summer. But for like, selfishly, that's difficult. And you would want a player on a team contending for multiple trophies to be able to see out the season. Another player, so you don't have to react to that at all, Julian. Another player that's top of the mind, top of the market is Moise Bombito, Canadian international center back, Colorado Rapids. Lyon are really trying really hard to sign him. Colorado have a high valuation of him because they believe that, you know, the counter argument to putting up a bigger fee right now is that he's got only like 40 professional games, which is nuts how his rise has been. It's been awesome to watch. And like Colorado, like that's fair. We understand, but we think if he's here for another year and he'll have played another 30 games, 40 games, whatever the number ends up being, that like whatever questions you have about his, you know, sample size will be gone, and this will be the value. But Moise Bombito wants to move to Lyon. This is another one where conversations are still ongoing. If like they're trying to find a way to bridge the gap in like Colorado, like they might Lyon might send a player back to Colorado as like a U21 player, and like, hey, I know that you want X, and we're only going to offer up to 5.5. Here's, you know, a $2 million rated player or whatever it is, right? To make up the difference. But we'll see if that happens. No agreements reached.
The wheeling and dealing with the relative to winter and summer windows, just creating a ridiculous amount of complications, but that is the life that MLS seems to have chosen.
This is actually a conversation I had the other day. Could you ever see MLS going to like flip it? You'd have to play obviously through the winter.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but I think if you asked me like a year ago, I would have said absolutely no chance. You just kind of start to look at the calendars now, and like, there's obviously they add every league, everything in the world always wants more and more and more. So let's say, between Club World Cup, the World Cup, like some of these long breaks that they need to have, it's like at some point that there could be, okay, like the higher quality this league gets, we absolutely cannot play through international breaks anymore. Like right now, it's like at a tipping point for team by team basis. Like Inter Miami would be a team that really should never be playing through the international break because that's a lot of key players in that team. And at that point, you're just simply running out of weekends. And so maybe there's a way to finesse it like that. But again, the time zones, the climate, all that, the weather would make it super difficult. I think more to the point on this is, given where like the league needs to take a break for Leagues Cup, which is something that MLS and League MX added. So that's a problem of their own doing, or just not even a problem, just something that they have to work around. And one of the workarounds is they kind of had to front load some of the schedule. There's been some midweek games earlier in the season, and then there's going to be a month of break. So if you sign a player, let's say Marco Reus. So even if the Galaxy do sign him, there's no chance that he's going to be able to play in the next week. Probably not even going to play in the Leagues Cup group stage, and they wouldn't even care. They'd be like, just ramp up, take your time. But like, if you're St. Louis, and St. Louis added a couple really key pieces before the window even started, by the time the window opens on Thursday, like they could be like 12 points below the playoff line.
Yeah.
And then those players have 10 games, maybe 11 games to change something. So talking to sporting directors this year, I think more than ever, teams tried to spend everything they could in the winter ahead of the summer. Or you're even looking at summer signings as this is mostly for 2025, then the impact that they'll have in 2024. So I think that's an interesting wrinkle.
I think a big concern I would have about that is there are a couple of stadiums that would be unreasonably cold and snowy in playing through the winter, but that's obviously pretty easily solvable if you just want to throw around some of that $500 million, buy a franchise fee to get the domes over like Salt Lake City and Denver and whatever else is possible. Yeah, Montreal.
You can't even, the Montreal don't have games until April as is. Like, what would they do?
Yes.
November to April,
Well, you just got to invest in those heated fields or whatever and figure it out.
Get the technology from Lambeau.
Yes. Or Real Madrid. Do you see that? Like 8 stories underneath? Stuff like that.
The damn thing looks like the Death Star.
But I have one last question, and then I'll leave it all up to you, Zealand. Just for Inter Miami. Will I be getting a new teammate?
Yeah, I'd assume so. I know that the injury to Freire has been difficult, and again, particularly if an outbound deal goes in, there's going to be. I'm expecting some moves this summer.
Okay, all right. We'll see.
Julian's going to be tapped into Tom, like, hey, you think this is legit or something? Just kind of
the funny thing is, I
just get traded?
All this
What?
stuff. Yeah, exactly. I get stuff like on like through his channels and through like his like rumors before like people walk through the building and like have like medical checks, and I see them and everything too. So this is really my source as well, which is of things happening within my personal space. So
if I needed to have a resume, I'd put this on it.
Yes, just
I just have a Twitter account.
Message me on the side if you hear something before.
The best part about that was when you joked about Julian being traded and watching Julian's life flash.
PTSD.
Oh man.
Please no.
Even though you don't have a resume and just the Twitter account, you did have your own transfer news, of course. You left The Athletic, which is where you were when I had you on the YouTube channel, and signed with Give Me Sport. Was there kind of like a player exchange? Did they, was it a player swap? How many installments did they put in that deal? How'd they get you to make the switch?
How much allocation money, international spots, all the good stuff.
The TAM and the GAM, it was all over the place.
Opportunistic by Give Me Sport. I'd tell you that. They're like, wait a minute, we thought you were under a long-term contract. We can make an offer. And so they reached out. They put an ambitious project in front of me, showed me how serious they were. And again, we're more soccer outlets covering MLS isn't a bad thing. And I got it. So I'm the first MLS employee at Give Me Sport right now. So it's been fun that first week of I have to remember how to, sometimes I'll be formatting my own articles. I was like, I feel like I haven't done this I thought I graduated from this. What's going on here? But like, that's how cool it is that we're starting to build. And I can't tell you how many DMs and texts I've gotten from, oh my God, like they're hiring. Like who should I contact? Like it's been a ton of people because there's so much appetite for these jobs and these opportunities. So we're going to hopefully build out a nice little staff. And yeah, that is going to be the same stuff that I did at The Athletic in terms of transfer news, analysis, insights. It's just a different outlet. And for those who hadn't been subscribing to The Athletic, no paywall. So that's pretty nice too.
There you go. And we really appreciate you joining us. Where can people find all of that stuff?
Yeah, twitter.com, just at Tom Bogert. I launched a new podcast starting with about a month in now. It's exciting times. Myself and David Goss. It's called Soccer Wise. You find it wherever you get your podcasts. Soccer Wise HQ on Twitter. We have a Patreon that also has a Discord that I've been really blown away. How we didn't even promote any of it, and people found the Patreon and started subscribing. And the Discord, before we were even ready to soft launch it, people were already getting in, and pretty quickly it's just been a ton of fun. I've been much more active. I knew I was going to be in it, but I find myself going out of my way to check the Discord and talking there, because it's just constant talking about MLS, and I don't know what else to do with my brain in free time, so I might as well. I was one night this week, me and my fiance went out, we had a date, and then we came back, and I was like, I'm not tired. Then I was like, it's 10:45 or 11. I'm like, I'm just gonna jump in the Discord, because what else am I gonna do on a Friday night at 11 p.m.? So that's the sad state of my life. But that's I think that helps for whoever wants to join the Discord. You can find that through Patreon.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the answer to that question for me is Play Football Manager. So we all have our own. Yeah. And Julian's asleep. Great podcast. All right. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Cheers, boys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tom.
That's it for this week. Huge thanks to Tom Bogert. Check out all of his work that he was literally just talking about. You can find it. And while you're looking, you're just browsing the interwebs anyways, you can find us on Instagram at the Player Manager Prod. Subscribe to Tom's podcast. Subscribe to our podcast. Bye. I love you.